There's a strange kind of pain that doesn't come from a breakup. It comes when someone goes silent and no longer waits. For avoidants, what they fear isn't losing you. They fear something deeper, that you finally stop chasing them. If you've ever loved an avoidantly attached person, you know the feeling. Every time you step back, they seem fine. But when you finally walk away, quietly, without punishment, without pleading, without waiting, they begin to feel something they've avoided their entire lives: real loneliness. In today's video, I'll walk you through the silent psychological phases avoidants go through when your silence starts to feel real. From the illusion of peace to the waves of curiosity, rationalization, secret checking, and finally, regret. You'll understand what happens when silence isn't a tactic but a quiet, final door closing. And more importantly, you'll learn how to hold your self-worth without needing anyone to return. If you're on a healing journey, this video may help you stop trying to be chosen and finally choose yourself. Hit subscribe if you've ever felt exhausted in love by trying too hard. And stay until the end, because the final message may show you this: you were never weak for being silent. You were becoming stronger than ever. After you go silent, truly silent, the first thing you notice from the avoidant is nothing. No messages, no reaction, no panics. They seem unfazed, maybe even relieved, like you just lifted some invisible weight off their shoulders. They return to their routines, smile in photos, laugh in public, and somewhere deep inside, you begin to wonder, did I ever matter to them at all? But don't be fooled by the calm. What you're witnessing isn't peace. It's a carefully built defense, something avoidants learned long ago, to call withdrawal freedom and call emotional loss a smart decision. They don't face their emotions. They package them, label them as handled, and push them deep into storage. They tell themselves, this wouldn't have lasted anyway. She was too emotional. I need space. But these thoughts aren't signs of indifference. They're survival mechanisms to shield themselves from pain they never learned how to hold. According to avoidant attachment theory, these individuals often grew up in emotionally unsafe environments where vulnerability was seen as weakness and closeness brought fear, not safety. So when big emotions rise up, they don't feel them, they manage them by pretending they don't exist. Your silence, for the avoidant, initially feels like a relief, a door closed they didn't know how to walk through. They self-soothe with logic. No more a drama. I'm fine. But this is where the internal deception begins. They are not fine. They are simply delaying the grief by telling their minds everything is under control. What they're doing isn't healing. It's staying busy enough to not feel empty. You don't see the late nights when they scroll through your stories and say nothing. You don't hear the quiet doubts they push away. Is she really gone? Am I losing something I never fully understood? Because they never learn to process emotional pain when it arrives, they learn to outthink it instead. That's the difference between secure and avoidant attachment. The secure feel and grow. The avoidant suppress and delay and pay the price in disconnection later. Their peace is a mask. Beneath it lies a forgotten emotional world, where control is only a pause button, not a cure. When the illusion of calm begins to crack, the avoidant quietly enters one of the most conflicted emotional stages, where curiosity collides with the fear of being left behind. This is when they begin to search for you in silence. They won't message you, won't ask, won't say a word to anyone. But late at night, or when they're alone, their phone opens up to you. Your recent story. A photo you posted that seems unrelated, yet they read every caption, scan every face. Are you smiling more now? Is someone new beside you? Are you truly okay without them? This isn't romantic longing. It's a defensive instinct, a way to check if they're still safe in your emotional world. Avoidants survive by controlling emotional distance. When they're the one stepping away, they feel in control. But when you stop reacting, that control disappears, and that's when their insecurity starts surfacing. But make no mistake, they don't check your stories because they want to rekindle the love. They do it because they need to know they haven't vanished from your radar. They're not looking for love, they're looking for safety. They reread old messages. They laugh at memories they once ignored. They remember small, intimate moments, the way you said their name, your goodnight texts. But still, they say nothing, because to reach out is to admit, I miss you. And for an avoidant, expressing emotion is a risk, a vulnerability. one that could lead to rejection, and they fear that more than being alone, so they choose to watch from afar. It gives them the illusion of care without the risk of intimacy. And ironically, the quieter you become, the more they check in secret. Not because they want to come back, but because your absence threatens the story they've told themselves, that they're fine. This is a silent war, and the avoidant doesn't realize that as they monitor you, they're slowly falling into an emotional loop they don't know how to escape. They no longer know whether your silence is a pause or the end. And that terrifies them, though they'll never name it. The tragedy is this: the more they seek emotional safety, the more unsafe they feel, because what they're truly looking for isn't you. It's the comforting illusion that they still matter without having to face the damage they caused. And that's why your silence, if grounded in self-worth, becomes not a punishment but a mirror, one that reflects the very emptiness they've been running from all their lives. After quietly watching from a distance and finding no comfort in silence, the avoidant slowly shifts into the next phase. They begin rewriting the story to protect their sense of self. This is a classic psychological defense, not only to avoid real emotions, but also to preserve a fragile ego that's quietly under threat. They may begin saying things to friends like, "She was too emotional. He was constantly asking for more than I could give. We were never really compatible, just out of sync." These phrases sound reasonable, even mature, but underneath, they're just words wrapped around a deep discomfort they don't want to feel. At this stage, the avoidant no longer controls your silence, and that strikes at the core of their hidden fear. If I didn't end this, does that mean I was the one left behind? They can't let themselves believe that, because if they do, their entire defense structure begins to collapse. So, they quickly restructure the memory. Warm moments get filtered out. Emotionally vulnerable exchanges are relabeled as too much. Your quiet pain is reframed as immaturity. This isn't because they're cruel. It's because they're protecting a part of themselves that never learned how to heal. Psychologically, this is known as rationalization, a defense mechanism that shields people from feelings like shame, guilt, or helplessness. For avoidantly attached individuals, emotions often feel threatening, so they reshape the narrative to avoid facing what feels like failure. They'll act composed, distant, maybe even smug as if nothing happened. But inside, they're straining to maintain the image. I'm fine. I made the right call. I'm in control. And that's why they can't apologize. They can't say, "I was wrong." They can't sit with the truth that maybe, just maybe, they let go of someone who truly cared for them. Rationalizing doesn't help them grow. It just delays their ability to truly feel. And the more they reframe, the more disconnected they become from their authentic emotional self, the part of them that once craved connection, but is now buried under logic. What the avoidant truly needs in this phase isn't someone to prove them wrong. They need a space safe enough to admit that they're hurting without being judged. But the painful irony is this: they often choose to judge you first, just to avoid being judged by themselves. When rationalizing no longer numbs the growing emptiness, the avoidant begins to feel an unclear yet undeniable urge. They want to see if the door is still open. But unlike securely attached people who might express openly that they miss you, are confused, or want to reconnect, the avoidant can't engage with emotions directly. Instead, they opt for half-hearted signals, subtle, vague, carefully casual. You might get a random message, "Hey, how've you been?" Or a laughing reaction to a story that wasn't even funny. Maybe a meme with no context, but strangely reminiscent of something you once shared together. These aren't invitations to rebuild the relationship. They're not declarations of love. They are emotional radar pings testing if you still respond, if you still care, if they still have access. What they fear at this stage isn't losing you, it's losing the ability to be received by you. Your extended silence has made them uncertain about whether they still matter. They don't want closeness, but they also can't handle being completely shut out. This is where their inner conflict peaks. It's like standing outside a house they don't want to enter, but still knocking to see if someone's home. They don't want intimacy, but they don't want to be forgotten either. The paradox is, if you respond too warmly or quickly, they retreat again. Because for them, safety doesn't come from closeness. It comes from distance they can manage. And if they know you're still emotionally accessible, their fear of being engulfed return. But if you say nothing, their anxiety intensifies. They might try again another story reaction, another vague message. Each attempt triggers an internal battle. Am I reaching out too much? Is this beneath me? If they don't answer, is it really over? What's essential to understand here is this. These behaviors aren't about love, they're about control and reassurance. They're not ready to love, but they can't bear the thought that they've lost the ability to enter your emotional world. That's why this is the most critical time to hold your boundaries, not as punishment, but to protect the peace you've built in your silence. When you don't react according to their old emotional patterns, you gently force them to confront their true motives. And sometimes, the only way they realize they've lost access is when you stop answering the knock. Some forms of grief don't arrive the moment someone leaves. They arrive when their absence becomes normal. For the avoidant, emotions don't hit immediately. They arrive late, quietly, slowly. But when they do, there's nowhere left to run. This is the moment when the avoidant finally begins to feel the actual loss, not imagined, not controlled, not from a distance. At this point, your silence is no longer a phase. It becomes a new reality they don't know how to live with. They wake up one lazy weekend morning and realize, no more good morning texts from you. They open social media and you're no longer there, no stories, no updates, no presence. You're not just quiet, you're gone. And in that absence, the things they once dismissed begin to resurface this time, through a very different lens. They remember how you listened with a patience they never really valued. They remember the small things, the way you left notes when you'd come home late, or gently reached for their hand when they started to pull away. All of those things, once seen as too much, now become irreplaceable details they can't find anywhere else. But the deepest ache isn't just missing you. It's that they miss the version of themselves that existed when they were with you, the version that was a little softer, a little more open, and had a real shot at closeness. And now, they can't go back to that self. This is the beginning of delayed grief, the kind that arrives without warning. Because in all the phases before, they were too busy suppressing, justifying, testing. They never left space to actually feel. And when the wave finally hits, it doesn't crash loudly. It shows up in a song on the radio that catches them off guard. A message thread they stumble upon while looking for something else. A conversation with someone new that suddenly feels flat. They start to realize, you weren't perfect, but something about the way you loved, the way you understood them without forcing it, made them feel seen in a way they can't explain. They pushed you away. They created distance. They hurt you thinking they were protecting themselves. And now, with the silence fully settled in, they're left sitting in the very space they once craved, only to realize how cold it actually is. This stage comes with no dramatic breakdowns, no scenes, just a quiet wait as they begin to realize they didn't just push away a relationship. They pushed away a safe space they no longer know how to return to. This is the stage where silence is no longer just a pause, it becomes a mirror. And unlike others who've walked away, you didn't leave anger, you didn't scream, you left quietly, fully, without a trace. And in that silence, for the first time, the avoidant can't change the channel. There's no distraction in someone new, no emotional buffer of rationalization, no memes or emoji or casual check-ins to hide behind. They are forced to sit and see themselves. They begin to reflect not only on you, but on every relationship before you. Every time they pulled away, every time closeness felt suffocating, every moment they ghosted someone simply for caring a bit too much. And now, that pattern doesn't look like coincidence. It looks like avoidance repeated. And they can't blame it on emotional people anymore. Because this time, you did nothing wrong. That realization is quiet, sharp. It doesn't crash like thunder, it lingers like a slow ache. Guilt, because they broke something worth keeping. Loneliness, because they've run out of people to pretend with. Fear, because if this pattern keeps repeating, who's going to stay next time? They begin to understand a hard truth. They don't just fear being hurt. They fear hurting others and losing them because of it. Silence is no longer a refuge they retreat into. It becomes a space filled with the echoes of unresolved memories. Every cold word, every withdrawal, every moment of pulling away, it all plays in their head. Not because someone reminds them, but because there's no one left to forget with. They start to see the true cost of avoidant freedom. Yes, they have space, but no one in it. Yes, they have control, but no one wants connection. Yes, They feel safe, but there's no one left to love. And then, maybe for the first time, they ask, have I become so good at leaving that I no longer know how to stay? This is the rare moment when true self-awareness begins to crack through. They stop seeing you as someone from the past and begin to realize you were a reminder that closeness isn't danger, it's opportunity. Not every avoidant will step into healing after this phase, but at the very least, for the first time, they stop and they see. No more running, no more blame, no more hiding behind logic. Just them and a truth that finally has nowhere left to hide. After beginning to confront themselves, the avoidant enters one of the most conflicted stages. They start to look back, but they're not sure what they're looking for. This isn't like the earlier check-ins or logical justification. This time, they revisit not to find you, but to find the memory of you. They go through old photos, reopen old message threads they once ignored. They reread your soft, caring words, the ones that gently paved the way for closeness they weren't ready to accept. And then, they compare. Their current conversations feel shallow. New connections may feel exciting, but fade fast. They're liked more, but not understood. That's when you begin to feel different, not because you were perfect, but because you were safe. Not in words, but in presence. You didn't try to control, or push, or manipulate. You simply stayed, loved, waited without forcing. And that's what they now begin to question. Why couldn't I receive that back then? Why did I run from the person who meant the most? This phase is like holding a magnifying glass to past choices. But this time, the emotional defenses are no longer blinding them. They begin to see that what they once considered normal in relationships was actually a poor imitation of something real. They're not even sure if it was love, but they know it wasn't you. Now they wonder, are they feeling this just because they're lonely? Or did they truly lose something they never fully understood? That confusion pulls them deeper into memories, not to mourn, but to relearn themselves. They once thought emotional stability was boring. Now, they realize emotional safety was the one thing they never knew how to value. But realizing that is only the beginning. Knowing what to do with that truth, that's the harder part. So, in this phase, they often fall into a strange fog, not ready to return, not able to fully move on. And this becomes the deepest inner conflict for the avoidant. They realize you were unlike anyone else, but they're not sure if they're capable or worthy of someone like you. After a long stretch of silence, after reflecting and comparing, the avoidant may do something they once swore they'd never need to do. They reach out, not with clarity, not necessarily with growth, but with a vague impulse, part longing, part test. You might receive a late-night message. I've been thinking about you. Not sure why, but today reminded me of us. Or just an emoji, a song, a quiet quote sent not for a reply, but to say, I'm still here. At first glance, it may feel like they've finally understood, that they've changed, that they're ready to love. But be careful, not everyone who comes back has come back changed. Some return not for love, but for the emotional comfort they once found in you. The truth is, they're not reaching out because they're ready to go deep. They're reaching out because among all the shallow connections they've encountered since, you were the last place where they felt safe and accepted. You were their emotional buffer, their quiet safety net, the one they always assumed would still be there no matter how far they pulled away. And now, if you respond too quickly, if you hope too soon, the old cycle returns. Connection, fear, withdrawal, and all the pain you worked so hard to escape begins again. But if you hold your boundary, not with anger, not with coldness, but simply by no longer being so easily accessible, then for the first time, the avoidant faces a new, unfamiliar experience, being rejected without anyone to blame. No one's too emotional anymore. No one's asking too much. End of. Just them and the space they created. This is a turning point, because now, their attempt to reconnect is no longer a test of you. It's a test of their own inner reckoning. If you no longer react the way they expect, no longer predictable, waiting, soft, they're forced to face the question they've always avoided. If even the safe ones eventually leave, what's left but my own fear? And that's where emotional maturity begins. Not everyone passes this threshold. Some will run again, searching for easier comfort. But for a few, your quiet, firm boundary without resentment, without re-entry, becomes the greatest lesson they've ever received in love, accountability, and the true cost of avoidance. In the end, the most powerful thing you can do is not to fix the avoidant, nor wait for them to finally see your worth. It's to gently but firmly return to yourself and choose love, the kind that doesn't require you to trade your peace just to be seen. You loved deeply, you waited, you tried, you even shrank parts of yourself to keep the connection alive. But love can't survive where only one person stays open. Love cannot grow in a space where you must dim your emotions just to fit into someone else's fear. Your silence, if born from pain, is temporary, but your silence, if born from clarity, becomes a loving boundary, not meant to push others away, but to pull yourself closer to truth, self-respect, and your own emotional safety. You don't need to punish anyone. You don't need to prove your worth. The right person will not ask you to shrink. They will step out of their fear and meet you halfway. And if the avoidant cannot do that, let them learn what they must in the echo of your absence, because sometimes the greatest gift you can offer someone is not your patience, but your timely departure. And for you, this is not the end. This is the beginning, the healing, the boundary, the self-love that stops needing to be chosen in order to choose wisely. If you're there now in the quiet aftermath of a love that couldn't meet you where you are, remember this: you are not alone, and you don't have to chase anymore. Just walk toward yourself, steady, soft, and uncompromising,